Why you must learn to live coldly after 70. 7. Powerful reasons for peace, strength, and self-respect. Have you spent most of your life being chained, patient, and generous, only to find yourself overlooked, drained, or even taken advantage of? As we age, society often tells us to stay soft-hearted, endlessly forgiving, and always available. But the truth is, after 70, if you don't learn to live with a little more distance and protect your energy, you may end up emotionally depleted, pulled in too many directions, and quietly resentful. In today's video, we're diving into 7 powerful reasons why learning to live with emotional clarity, not coldness, is essential in your later years. This isn't about shutting people out. It's about protecting your peace, your health, and the life you've worked so hard to create. Because here's what many people only realize far too late. Being endlessly agreeable, emotionally wide open, and constantly available to others can slowly chip away at your joy, your boundaries, and even your well-being. The lessons you'll hear today are about how to care deeply without being drained, how to stay kind without being used, and how to give without losing yourself. Stay with us until the end, because reason number 7 is the one that rarely gets talked about, but it might just shift how you approach the rest of your life. Once you hear it, you'll wish someone had told you sooner. Let's begin. Reason number 1. Say no without guilt. Guard your energy reserves. Let's begin with one of the most overlooked, yet life-saving habits you can develop after 70. The ability to say no and mean it, without guilt, without apology, without the need to explain. It might sound small, but for many older adults, saying no feels almost unnatural. Why? Because you've spent a lifetime being dependable. The one who always shows up, steps in, and never lets anyone down. You've been the helper, the fixer, the giver, and that's admirable. But now in this season of life, constantly saying yes is costing you more than you realize. Every time you agree to something out of guilt or pressure, you're quietly withdrawing from your own energy bank. And most of us are doing it without knowing the balance is running low. According to Harvard Medical School, seniors who frequently override their personal limits, especially when they say yes out of obligation, experience higher levels of cortisol, the body's stress hormone. Elevated cortisol doesn't just make you tired. Over time, it can weaken your immune system, elevate your blood pressure, and even increase your risk of stroke and heart disease. And what's worse, saying yes when you mean no can rob you of your joy, clarity, and freedom. So how do you know if this applies to you? Let's take a look at some subtle signs. You often feel drained or irritable after helping someone. You say yes to events or favors, and then secretly dread them. You find yourself canceling your own plans to accommodate others. You feel guilty or anxious just thinking about disappointing someone. You wake up tired, not from physical work, but from emotional exhaustion. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Let me tell you about Sandra, 76, from Phoenix, Arizona. Sandra spent most of her life as the yes woman of her family. If someone needed something, a ride, a favor, a last-minute dinner, she was there. Even when she was tired, even when she didn't want to, even when her own needs went ignored. At first, it made her feel needed, but slowly, it began to chip away at her health. She started having migraines. Her blood pressure crept up. She couldn't sleep through the night, and one day, she found herself sitting in her car, crying. Not from sadness, but from complete overwhelm. Her doctor's words were simple, but life-altering. Sandra, it's not your heart that's giving out. It's your boundaries. That was the moment she made a change, not a dramatic one. She didn't cut people off. She didn't stop loving. She simply began to check in with herself first before saying yes. Or she began to pause, reflect, and ask, do I really want to do this? Do I have the energy? Not just physically, but emotionally. Am I doing this from love or from pressure? And if the answer wasn't a full-body yes, she gave herself permission to say, no, not this time, but thank you for understanding. The results? Sandra reclaimed her mornings. She rediscovered her love for journaling and watercolor painting. Her blood pressure dropped. Her smile came back. And guess what? Her family didn't reject her. They respected her, because when you start respecting your own time and energy, the right people follow your lead. Learning to say no isn't about shutting others out. It's about letting yourself in. It's about realizing that your energy is not unlimited, and you've earned the right to spend your days in ways that nurture you, not drain you. So, if you're someone who's always been the giver, If you've ever said yes and then quietly wished you hadn't, if you're starting to feel like everyone's needs come before your own, it's time to shift that story. Because choosing yourself at this stage of life isn't selfish. It's sacred. You've spent decades giving. Now it's your turn to rest, to choose, to protect your peace. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you said yes? When deep down, everything inside you was saying no. And how did it make you feel afterward? If this resonates with you, please take a moment to like this video. It helps more people find messages like this. Share it with someone who always puts themselves last. They might need this reminder too. And most importantly, leave us a comment below. What's one thing you're finally ready to say no to, starting today? And if you haven't already, subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where we honor wisdom, set boundaries, and remind you that peace is your birthright, because you're just getting started. Let's move forward to the next reason and unlock another layer of strength you didn't even know was yours. Reason 2, stop people pleasing. Reclaim your mental clarity. Now that we've talked about the importance of saying no without guilt, let's take one step deeper. Because sometimes the real challenge isn't just saying no. It's the emotional need to say yes, even when it's costing us everything. This brings us to our second reason to live more intentionally after 70. Letting go of the need to please everyone. People pleasing might sound harmless, even admirable. After all, what's wrong with wanting to make others happy? But here's the truth. When your life becomes a series of attempts to keep the peace, meet every need, and avoid disappointing anyone, you slowly begin to disappear from your own life. You wake up each day already overwhelmed. You say yes before you've thought about what you actually want. You agree, nod, accommodate, and quietly carry the weight of unmet needs, unspoken frustration, and growing emotional fatigue. According to the American Association of Retired Persons, AORP, chronic people-pleasing in older adults is directly linked to increased anxiety, poor sleep, and a sense of inner restlessness, even in retirement. And perhaps most importantly, it disrupts your ability to think clearly, make sound decisions, and feel emotionally grounded. Let me introduce you to Robert, 81, from Austin, Texas. Robert spent most of his life as a pillar in his community, the dependable uncle, the friend who never missed a favor, the man who always showed up. He wore that role like a badge of honor. But after his wife passed away, something began to shift. Suddenly, there were more requests, more expectations. His adult children leaned on him for help. His neighbors asked him to run errands. His church group assumed he had endless time, and every time he agreed, even when he didn't want to, he felt a little more drained. He stopped gardening. He skipped his afternoon walks. He couldn't even finish reading the newspaper without feeling restless. What Robert didn't realize at first was that he had fallen into the trap of believing that being kind means being constantly available. It took a quiet moment, sitting on his porch one Sunday afternoon, for it to hit him. He looked at his calendar, full of commitments he hadn't truly chosen, and asked himself one simple question. When did my time stop being mine? That question changed everything. Robert started to set small boundaries. He delayed his responses to requests. He took a day to think before agreeing to anything. And sometimes he simply said, I'd love to help, but I need this time for myself. What happened next surprised him. The world didn't collapse. His relationships didn't fall apart. In fact, he became more present, more thoughtful, and more himself. Because when you stop chasing the approval of others, you begin to find the person you lost along the way. The one who used to enjoy quiet mornings, long walks, slow meals, and meaningful rest. Living coldly after 70 doesn't mean shutting people out. It means protecting your mind from the noise, your soul from burnout, and your days from being dictated by other people's urgency. And here's something beautiful. When you let go of the pressure to make everyone else happy, you leave room to rediscover what actually makes you happy. You give yourself permission to breathe, to pause, to choose, to read that book you always wanted to finish, to call a friend, not because you're needed, but because you want to reconnect, to enjoy a meal without rushing off to solve someone else's emergency, because your life still matters. Not just what you do for others, but what you allow yourself to be when no one is asking anything of you. So ask yourself this and be honest. Are you trying too hard to keep everyone happy while quietly losing pieces of yourself in the process? If so, maybe today is the day you press pause. Maybe today is the day you give yourself the same care, patience, and consideration you've spent years giving to others. If this message resonates with you, let it be your gentle wake-up call. Tap that like button if you're ready to stop carrying the pressure of everyone else's expectations. Share this video with someone in your life who needs permission to rest. And in the comments below, tell us, what's one small boundary you're going to set this week? For your peace, for your clarity, for yourself. Because the next chapter of your life, it's yours. Fully, freely, and finally. Let's keep going. Reason 3. Emotional distance is self-care, not coldness. If learning to say no frees up your time and letting go of people-pleasing clears your mind, then this next step does something even deeper. It gives you back your peace. Because what many of us don't realize until much later in life is that carrying other people's emotions can be just as exhausting as carrying physical weight. You may not be lifting boxes, but you're lifting worries that aren't yours. You're holding guilt that doesn't belong to you. You're absorbing conflict that you didn't create, and it's wearing you down. This is why the third reason to live a little more coldly after 70 is so vital. Emotional distance is not selfish. It's self-care. Setting emotional boundaries isn't about turning your back on people. It's about choosing when, where, and how to engage, so you're not constantly drained, reactive, or overwhelmed. According to Mayo Clinic, seniors who develop emotional boundaries, the ability to step back from high-stress interactions, report better sleep quality, improve mental resilience, and significantly lower rates of chronic anxiety. When you protect your emotional space, your nervous system gets a break. You breathe easier. You sleep deeper. You stop waking up in the middle of the night thinking about someone else's chaos. Let me tell you about Eleanor, 80 Baysher, from Sacramento, California. Eleanor is a retired nurse, a mother of 3, and the proud grandmother of 7. She's loving, wise, and has always been the emotional glue of her family. But in recent years, that glue started cracking. Her adult children would call her, not to say hi, but to vent. One was going through a divorce. Another was struggling financially. The third barely visited, but expected her to be the peacekeeper whenever tensions flared. Eleanor tried to help. She listened. Advis worried, lost sleep. She felt responsible for fixing every situation, even though none of them were hers to fix. Eventually, it caught up to her. She started having trouble sleeping. Her appetite declined, and one day, after yet another stressful phone call, she felt her chest tighten, not from illness, but from emotional exhaustion. That was when she made a decision, not to stop loving her family, but to start loving herself just as much. She created small but powerful shifts. She scheduled phone calls instead of taking them at any hour. She set limits, 30 minutes of listening, then time to rest. She reminded herself, I can support without absorbing. I can listen without solving. Within weeks, Eleanor noticed changes. She began sleeping through the night again. Her energy returned. She smiled more, not because her family's problems vanished, but because she stopped making them her own. And something unexpected happened. Her children started figuring things out on their own. Without her jumping in, they became more self-reliant. And Eleanor? She reclaimed her peace and her role as a wise, calm presence, not a constantly exhausted rescuer. Because here's what no one tells you. You can love someone deeply and still choose not to carry the weight of their choices. You can be compassionate without becoming the casualty of other people's crises. Living with emotional distance after 70 doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. It makes you centered. It keeps you grounded, even when life around you feels chaotic. And when you do this, when you step back with kindness, with wisdom, with boundaries, you send a message to yourself and others. My peace matters too. So let me gently ask you, what stress are you holding right now that truly isn't yours to carry? And what would happen if you put it down, just for today? If this part of the message speaks to your soul, take a moment to like this video, because that's one small step toward choosing peace. Share it with a friend, a sister, a parent, anyone you know who's carrying more than their fair share. And if this feels personal, it's because you matter too. Tell us in the comments, what's one emotional burden you're finally ready to let go of this week? Let's move into the next reason together and discover another way to lighten your life. Reason 4. Filter your empathy. You're not everyone's savior. By now, we've talked about boundaries, people-pleasing, and emotional space. But there's one subtle habit, often mistaken for kindness, that can quietly wear down your health, your spirit, and your sanity. It's called over-empathy. You see, empathy is a beautiful trait. It's what makes us human. It's what allows us to connect, to comfort, to care. But when empathy goes unchecked, When you carry everyone's pain as if it were your own, it becomes a burden your heart and body were never meant to bear. This is why filtering your empathy is not selfish. It's survival. According to the National Institutes of Health, NIH, excessive empathy in older adults contributes to a condition called allostatic overload, a physiological stress response that raises blood pressure, increases inflammation, and leads to chronic fatigue. In other words, caring too much, too often can make you sick. That brings us to Gerald, 79, from Ohio. Gerald was the classic gentle soul, always listening, always helping, always saying, "I'm here if you need anything." His friends leaned on him, his neighbors vented, his grown children confided in him day and night, and Gerald absorbed it all. He didn't sleep well. He had headaches. His blood pressure climbed, but the doctors couldn't find anything physically wrong. Then one afternoon, his physician asked him a question that stopped him in his tracks. "Gerald, are you stressed, or are you carrying other people's stress?" That hit home, because deep down Gerald knew he wasn't just empathetic. He was acting like everyone's emotional emergency room. That's when he made a decision to still care, but with boundaries, to still listen, but not absorb, to still support, but without sacrificing his own peace. He started using simple phrases like, "That sounds difficult. I'm here for you, but I trust you'll find your way. I care about what you're going through, but I need some space today. I'll listen, but I may not have the answers." And that's okay. The result? Gerald's sleep improved. His blood pressure stabilized, and for the first time in years, he felt light again, emotionally and physically. Because here's the truth. You're not here to rescue everyone. You're here to live, to breathe, to enjoy the life you've earned. Empathy is a gift, but only when it flows through you, not consumes you. You can be compassionate without collapsing. You can offer love without losing balance. You can listen without becoming the fixer. So let me ask you, gently but directly, are you caring too much at the cost of your own health? If this part speaks to you, take it as a loving reminder that your well-being is not less important than anyone else's pain. Tap like if you've ever felt this kind of emotional fatigue. Share this video with someone who gives so much they sometimes forget to breathe. And in the comments, tell us what's one emotional burden you're ready to stop carrying for others. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where we remind you every week you're allowed to care and still protect your peace. Now let's move forward to the next reason, because each step you take brings you closer to the peace and power that were always yours. Reason 5, guard your time. It's the most valuable asset you own. After learning how to protect your emotions, there's one more resource that's even more limited and even more precious: your time. At this stage of life, you begin to understand something younger people often miss. Time is the most sacred thing you have. You can give it, share it, spend it, but you can't ever get it back. And yet so many older adults treat their time like it's unlimited. They let other people fill their calendars. They say yes to obligations out of habit. They attend events out of guilt, not joy. But here's the truth. Every time you spend your hours on something that doesn't nourish you, you're quietly trading away the most valuable part of your life. According to a study by the University of Michigan, seniors who actively control their own schedules, choosing when and where to give their time, report 37% higher levels of daily satisfaction and significantly lower rates of emotional fatigue. Because when your time is no longer up for grabs, your sense of self returns. Let me tell you about Helen, 78, from Sarasota, Florida. Helen used to be the yes machine. Church groups, birthday parties, lunch dates, community meetings, family visits. Her calendar looked full, but her heart felt empty. At first, she thought staying busy meant staying vibrant, but slowly, she realized she was showing up everywhere, except in her own life. She stopped painting. She missed her morning coffee on the porch. She spent more time in her car than in her own living room. Then, one Sunday evening, after coming home from an event she hadn't even wanted to attend, Helen sat down with her planner and cried. Not from sadness, but from exhaustion, from the quiet ache of a life filled with motion but lacking meaning. The next day, she made a decision. She cleared her calendar. She made 2 columns, what I want and what I feel obligated to do. And she started saying something she hadn't said in years. No, thank you. That's not for me right now. She began spending her mornings reading instead of rushing. She restarted her watercolor classes, and one Saturday, for the first time in a decade, she went to the beach. alone, not for anyone else, just for her. And what she discovered wasn't just freedom, it was peace. Because guarding your time isn't about being antisocial. It's about choosing deliberately, living intentionally, protecting the hours that you'll never get back. Every minute you save for yourself is a vote for your joy. Every event you skip that didn't feel right is a step toward emotional clarity. And every day you spend on something you truly love becomes a memory you cherish, not a task you regret. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you said yes to something you didn't want, just to keep someone else happy? And what would it feel like to start choosing you again? If this message feels like it's speaking directly to your experience, give this video a like. It's your way of reclaiming time even in this small moment. Share it with someone you know who's constantly running, but never resting. And in the comments, let's hear from you. What's one thing you're ready to stop doing so you can start living more intentionally? Next, we'll explore a reason that brings everything together, the one that shows you how peace comes not from controlling life, but from letting go of what was never in your hands. Let's move forward. Reason 6, detach from outcomes. Stay mentally strong and spiritually free. So far, we've talked about setting boundaries with your time, your energy, and your emotions. But there's one final layer, one invisible weight that keeps many older adults awake at night, even when their calendars are clear and their homes are quiet. It's the need to control how things turn out. Because after a lifetime of giving, building, parenting, supporting, it's easy to feel like you're still responsible for how everything unfolds, how your children live, how people treat you, how others perceive you. You try to fix, guide, prevent, explain, overthink until your mind is exhausted and your spirit is stuck in what ifs. But here's the truth, and it's one of the hardest lessons we learn in our later years. Peace doesn't come from getting everything right. It comes from letting go of what was never yours to carry. This is why the 6th reason to live coldly, or rather clearly after 70, is this. Detach from outcomes. Let go of control and reclaim your calm. According to the Harvard study of adult development, seniors who learn to emotionally detach from situations they can't control, like other people's decisions, external conflict, or unresolved issues, report higher levels of psychological well-being, better sleep, and a stronger sense of emotional stability. Because when you stop trying to manage life's uncontrollables, your body relaxes, your breathing deepens, and your heart finally rests. Let me share the story of Louis, 82, from Chicago. Louis is a father of 4 and grandfather of 9. He's always been the steady one, the fixer, the protector, the silent provider. But in the past few years, he found himself constantly worrying. One child was making questionable life choices, another rarely called. One of his grandchildren was struggling in school, and every night Louis lay awake, replaying conversations, wondering if he should have done more, said more, fixed more. But one day, sitting at a park bench near Lake Michigan, he saw something that changed him. A toddler was trying to walk, stumbling, falling, getting back up. The mother watched closely, but didn't interfere. She let the child fall and learn. And that's when it hit him. Maybe the people I love don't need me to fix their path. Maybe they need me to believe they can find their own way. From that day forward, Louis made a vow to offer love, not control, to give advice when asked, but not to chase approval or orchestrate outcomes, to choose peace over perfection. And slowly, he began to smile more, sleep deeper, worry less, not because everything got better, but because he stopped believing it was all his job to fix. Letting go isn't weakness, it's wisdom. When you stop obsessing over how things should turn out, you begin to see the beauty of life as it is, not just as you hoped it would be. You begin to enjoy a meal without replaying old conversations. You begin to sit in silence without the pressure to solve every problem. You begin to trust, not just others, but yourself, because detachment is not indifference. It's knowing that your worth isn't tied to outcomes. Your legacy is not defined by what others choose, and your peace is not a product of perfect endings. It's a practice of graceful release. So let me ask you, what are you still holding on to that no longer serves your peace? What outcome, expectation, or burden are you ready to lay down today? If this part of the video resonates with your journey, take a moment to like it. Not just to support the channel, but as a quiet act of choosing your peace. Share this with someone who's trying too hard to carry the uncontrollable. And in the comments, tell us, what's one thing you're learning to let go of for the sake of your health and sanity? And if you haven't already, subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where we honor not just the years you've lived, but the peace you're learning to protect. Because what's coming next? It's not just a reason, it's a revelation, a final truth that most people never realize until it's almost too late. Let's keep going together. Reason 7. Don't let others emotionally manipulate you. Stand in your dignity. If you've made it this far, then you already understand. After 70, protecting your peace isn't just a luxury. It's a necessity. But there's one more threat to that peace, one that's often invisible, yet incredibly damaging. It's not loud. It doesn't come with bruises or broken things. It comes in whispers, in guilt, in carefully chosen words like, if you really love me, you do this. We were counting on you. You're all we've got. Don't let us down. That's not care. That's emotional manipulation. And the 7th reason to live coldly, or better yet, clearly, after 70 is this: don't let others manipulate you emotionally. Stand firm in your dignity. According to the National Institute on Aging, emotional coercion, often framed as subtle guilt tripping or passive control, is a recognized form of elder abuse. It doesn't look like violence. It looks like obligation, like pressure. But the damage it does, just as real. Let's meet Grace, 80, from Portland, Oregon. Grace is strong, independent, and generous to a fault. For years, her grown children leaned on her for everything: last-minute childcare, emergency loans, holiday hosting, emotional venting, and when she hesitated, they knew just what to say. But Mom, you're the only one who can help. Don't you care about the kids? We'd be lost without you. Grace said yes, over and over, until one day, while rocking her youngest grandchild to sleep, her hands began to tremble, not from love, but from exhaustion. She realized she'd become a full-time caregiver in retirement, not because she wanted to, but because she was afraid of disappointing those she loved. And that's when something inside her shifted. She remembered a truth she had buried under years of sacrifice. Love is not proven through suffering. Dignity is not selfish. And my worth isn't measured by how much I let others take. The next time a request came, she didn't yell. She didn't cry. She simply said, "No, sweetheart, not this time." She expected pushback. But something amazing happened. Her children paused and understood. Not because they changed, but because Grace finally did. Because here's the truth. When you stop letting guilt dictate your decisions, people start treating you differently. When you value your dignity, others begin to value it too. Emotional manipulation only works when you believe you owe everyone everything. But the truth is, you've already given decades of your life, and now you deserve to live those years with freedom, respect, and joy. Protecting your dignity is not coldness. It's wisdom. It's strength. It's knowing that your value doesn't decrease when you say no. It only increases, because now it's on your terms. So let me ask you, and really think about this. Have you ever felt manipulated into doing something for family, even when it drained you? If this moment feels personal, let that be your signal. You are allowed to step back and still be loving. You are allowed to rest and still be needed. You are allowed to choose yourself and still be a good parent, grandparent, sibling, friend. If this resonates with your heart, please like this video. Not for us, but for you. For your voice, your space, your worth. Share this message with someone who needs the courage to choose themselves again. And in the comments, tell us, what boundary will you protect this year to honor your own dignity? And maybe now, more than ever, you're ready to live not colder, but clearer. Not harsher, but freer. Not smaller, but stronger. Let's wrap up with something powerful, a reflection you won't forget. So here we are, 7 powerful reasons, 7 quiet shifts that have the power to transform your later years, not with noise or struggle, but with clarity, peace, and deep self-respect. Let's take a breath and remember what we've uncovered together. You've learned that saying no doesn't make you rude. It makes you wise. You've seen how stepping back from drama isn't cold, it's calm. You've realized that protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. You've explored how choosing yourself doesn't mean loving others less. It means finally loving yourself too. Because by this point in life, you've lived enough to know peace isn't found in saying yes to everyone. It's found in finally saying yes to you. You're still kind, but you're no longer available to chaos. You still love, but you protect that love with healthy limits. You still give, but never beyond what your spirit can safely offer. And that, my friend, is not coldness. That's strength. That's wisdom. That's freedom. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 7 reasons spoke to your heart the most today? Was there a moment in this video that felt like someone finally said what you've been thinking for years? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the very thing that helps someone else feel seen, understood, and empowered. And if this video has brought you even a little clarity, comfort, or calm, I invite you to do 3 simple things. Like this video. As a quiet affirmation of your growth, share it with a friend, a sibling, or someone who's always putting others before themselves, and subscribe to Golden Wise Elders, where we honor age, elevate wisdom, and remind you that your best years aren't behind you. They're right here when you choose to live on your terms. Don't forget to tap the bell so you won't miss what's coming next. Because we're not just getting older, we're getting clearer, we're getting lighter, and more than anything, we're getting free. Until next time, take care of your energy, protect your peace, and never forget how far you've come. You deserve every moment of calm that's waiting for you.